United States takes seriously that an attack against one is an attack against all.
Vice President Kamala Harris is in Europe, pledging to protect NATO allies from Russia and help Ukraine as attacks intensify.
Russian army crush and our city.
Plus, inflation hits another high and prices likely won't level off anytime soon.
We hit a record low at DIA this morning, but the cold air is moving out. I'll let you know when the spring-like weather moves back into the Front Range.
And Colorado kids are getting free meals in schools.
You know, I think it's a benefit to families right now.
State lawmakers want to make sure that program sticks around.
There's a whole gap of kids that are losing out on the opportunity to take advantage of free and reduced meals.
But we begin with breaking news from Douglas County. A lockdown was lifted about 20 minutes ago at Rock Canyon High School and Rocky Heights Middle School in Littleton. The schools were on lockdown because police were in the area. These are photos our crew took from the scene. It's unclear what police were doing near the schools. We will let you know when we learn more. Man, it's cold out there. The snow has now moved out, but now we're left with clouds and temps still below freezing. We even hit a record low out at DIA. It was 7 below this morning, breaking the old daily record of 3 below set back in 1932. Taking a quick check of the roads now, things seem to be moving okay across the metro. On the right, a look from I-25 near the Tech Center. It was a slow drive coming in this morning, so definitely take it easy out there. On the left, CDOT's map showing much of the metro out there in pink, meaning there's some icy and snow-covered roads out there. Meteorologist Stacey Donaldson joins us now. Stacey, the good news, that warm-up is on its way. It's right around the corner.
Around the corner, but still will be chilly today. Afternoon highs only in the 20s this afternoon, and we're coming from that overnight low of 7 below last night. So at this point, we're at 11 degrees downtown, 10 degrees at DIA, and temperatures in the teens off to our north toward Fort Collins. You factor in the wind, still feels like it's in the single digits and below zero for much of the Front Range and eastern Colorado. So we still have very much a chill in the air, and winter weather here down to the south. Winter weather advisories in effect here through southern Colorado as it continues to snow. We have clearing skies expected here for the Front Range as we get through the rest of the day. That snow sinking to the south from Colorado City all the way just north of Trinidad for the rest of the day today. So we're going to see improving conditions, perhaps a little leftover flurries here into the late morning, but otherwise our Thursday planner looks good. We'll have cloudy skies, temperatures in the 20s for the next few hours, and then into the teens as we head into the later part of the day.
Thank you. And if you want to check out the fresh powder up in the high country, watch out for avalanches. Steamboat and flat tops have very dangerous conditions. Most of the high country has considerable danger, especially on slopes that face north and east. Don't forget, you can get 24/7 Colorado weather updates and live radar on your TV. Just download the free Denver 7 Plus app for your favorite streaming device.
When it comes to crimes and violations of international norms and rules, we are also very clear that any intentional attack on innocent civilians is a violation.
Vice President Kamala Harris is denouncing Russian bombing attacks on civilians in Ukraine. She's in Poland today, meeting with the country's prime minister in an effort to reaffirm the United States' commitment to the region's security. Russia's attacks in Ukraine are intensifying. The West is calling this airstrike on a hospital a war crime. Thousands of soldiers and civilians are dead in the 2 weeks since the war started. And there's no signs that the fighting will end. Talks today between the two countries went nowhere. Faith Abube has the latest.
Growing international outrage after Russia's horrifying airstrike on a maternity and children's hospital in the city of Mariupol during a temporary ceasefire. Russia's foreign minister today forcefully claiming it was a base for what he calls Ukrainian radicals.
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable.
But video from the aftermath of the attack reveals a different story. Children and an injured pregnant woman among those rescued. Ukraine's President Zelensky declaring Russia was responsible for the atrocity on the hospital that killed 3, including a child, and injured 17 others.
To attack children is to attack life. civilization itself.
Today, face-to-face diplomatic talks in Turkey between the Ukrainian and Russian foreign ministers ending poorly, with Ukraine's top diplomat suggesting Russia was demanding they surrender. But even as the Russian military has repeatedly violated ceasefires, Zelensky saying more than 60,000 Ukrainian civilians were evacuated yesterday, and thousands are still trying to leave. Almost 2.5 million have fled the country, most of them escaping to Poland, where this morning Vice President Kamala Harris met with the Prime Minister and the President. Harris mum on whether the U.S. will offer an alternative to Poland's plan to give its Soviet-era MiG fighter jets to the U.S. to then hand over to Ukraine. The Pentagon also denying Russia's claims that the U.S. and Ukraine are preparing a chemical weapons attack. That accusation prompting the White House to warn Russia might attack Ukraine with its own chemical or biological weapons. And there are reports that Russian forces have cut power to the site of the world's largest nuclear disaster, Chernobyl. The International Nuclear Watchdog says there's no immediate risk of a radiation leak, but the situation is fragile. In Washington, Faith Abube, ABC News.
Colorado's gas prices are getting closer to $4 a gallon. Prices went up 4 cents overnight to average $3.95. The U.S. average is now $4.31, a jump of 6 cents from yesterday. There could be a sign of relief, though, for the energy industry. The cost of oil saw its biggest one-day percentage decline in nearly 2 years. The price drop came after the United Arab Emirates called on its OPEC partners to ramp up production. It's in response to the U.S. and other countries banning Russian oil imports. Now, that price increase that we've been seeing at the gas pump goes along with the increases we're seeing just about everywhere else. Inflation rose 0.8% from January to February and nearly 8% in the past year in total, which is the fastest pace in 40 years. These numbers don't include most of the oil and gas price increases, so experts say inflation could reach 9%. Some lawmakers want another round of stimulus checks to help Americans pay their bills, but experts say all of that money will only make inflation worse. And not only are we paying more for items, we're getting less of them in some cases. It's a term called shrinkflation. Companies are spending more on creating products. So that means to cover costs, they will shrink a product's size or quantity while increasing the price or keeping it the same. Happening now in Washington, a government spending bill worth $1.5 trillion is heading to the Senate. The bill passed the House yesterday and would fund the government through September. It includes nearly $14 billion in aid to Ukraine. There's also funding for things like infrastructure, election security, and housing. One thing not included is nearly $16 billion for the pandemic. Something else that didn't make it into that spending bill is funding for free school meals. All children in the U.S. have eaten for free at school for the past 2 years, but it appears that will end this summer. In Colorado, a bill is working its way through our local state legislature that would have the state pick up the tab. Denver 7's Nicole Brady looks into how popular the free lunches have been and why advocates say it's worth the cost.
Lunchtime at school isn't just about the food. It's fun time with friends.
Lunch or recess, we compete with those too, so those are always the favorite classes.
In Jeffco schools, more kids than ever are loading up cafeteria trays.
We have seen about a 30% uptick in participation.
That's because right now lunch and breakfast are free for all kids. There's no paperwork and no stigma.
While we are very careful and never talk about who qualifies for free and reduced, some kids just announce it and some kids say the darndest things.
Some Colorado lawmakers want to keep things equal with a bill that would reimburse schools for meals for kids who don't qualify for free or reduced lunch.
To be eligible for free or reduced lunch, you have to be really, really poor. There's a whole gap of kids that are losing out on the opportunity to take advantage of free and reduced meals because they don't meet that income criteria, but yet their family is still struggling.
The sticking point, though, is the cost to the state, up to $118 million a year. Bill sponsors plan to introduce amendments to bring that down, and they're hoping for more federal dollars, especially as the cost of food keeps going up.
You know, I can't even guess what my budget's going to be.
Not only for schools, but for families who have come to rely on that guaranteed meal.
For 2 years, families have eaten at no cost. Mm-hmm. So if you had a first grader 2 years ago, that's all they know.
Nicole Brady, Denver 7.
Only about 28% of students in Jeffco qualify for free and reduced lunch. If passed, Colorado wouldn't start funding lunches for all students until the 2023-24 school year. Mesa County Clerk Tina Peters will be in court this afternoon. A grand jury indicted Peters and her deputy clerk yesterday. Most of the charges are felonies in connection to allegations of tampering with election equipment and official misconduct. Peters' attorney tells Denver 7 that he believes evidence will show his client acted properly. Meanwhile, the Colorado Republican Party is asking Peters to suspend her run for Secretary of State. Still ahead, Major League Baseball and its players are paving the way for more talks to try to end the lockout. And the sky's the limit for two Colorado friends. We'll introduce you to their business, letting you see an ad from your airplane window.